Well, folks, welcome to Dow's Weekly Digest. How are you doing and how are yours? I hope they're well. You know, it's that time of the year. There's kind of a buzz out here this summertime. I can hear the grasshoppers. We're getting a pretty good group of grasshoppers. And I can almost hear the ripening of raspberries. Get some raspberries on some good ice cream. Oh, if you've got a raspberry patch, you don't share where it is. I live out on Nemo Road, and I know where a raspberry patch is. That's been pretty faithful. So it's that time of the year. Folks, I had a recollection. And it was this, back in the 60s, and we're sitting at the supper table. Always had to be there at supper time. Didn't matter what it was, you ate it. And, of course, we're watching David Brinkley and Chet Huntley. Watching the news, and it seems like every night they're covering the same thing. And they're covering, folks, how many deaths there were and the location where they were. You see, this was the Vietnam War. And it seems like everybody was kind of at the supper tables, and everybody knew someone over there. And so the location was important. Now, I'm at the supper table, and I can't tell you who the news person is. But you know what? They start out the same way. How many people has died and their location. And folks, it's all over the world. And we know someone's out there and where they're at. A recollection. What do you say we look at some cowboy wisdom? And with that cowboy wisdom, I had another recollection. I'll share with you as we go on here a bit. But for cowboy wisdom, it was this, folks, on a hot summer day, never kick a cow chip on a hot summer day. Never kick a cow chip on a hot summer day. Now, my recollection, kind of going with this, cow chips of all things, folks, was this. One of the hats that I wear is I'm part of the Gideon's organization. And I'm blessed with the opportunity that we go out and visit churches. So we visited a church out here east of us here in Rapid City, Okoton, South Dakota. But I was at that church with LaDonna. We got up early to go out there. And one of the elders were there a little bit early to open up. And we're talking, and this elder has his grandkids there. And he talks about that he took them fishing yesterday. But before they got to go fishing, a little bass fishing, they had to do their work. And of course, he hooked me. I said, well, what were they doing? They were flipping cow chips. I said, what? Yeah, they're out in the pasture, and there's kind of dried up old cow chips, and they go in and flip them. And I thought maybe, okay, city boy, he was pulling my leg, but no, they actually flipped the cow chips out there. So when I saw that, it kind of reminded me that, kind of had that recollection. Now, you might be a Lutheran if the only table prayer you know starts with, "Come, Lord Jesus, be our guest." I mean, we'll have church meetings, and of course, after meeting, you got to have a meal. And guess what? The pastor will get up and say grace, and what does he say? That same common table prayer, as they call it there. So you might be a Lutheran. You might be a Lutheran yet. South Dakota trivia. South Dakota trivia deals with this. Lewis and Clark. Everyone kind of knows about the Lewis and Clark expedition. Lewis and Clark, when they went through South Dakota, it took them 54 days. And they started in Elk Point, South Dakota. And all the tributaries that have been mapped and named off the Missouri River was named from the Lewis and Clark expedition. So a little South Dakota trivia there, folks. The word of the day is salt. Salt. So, some good old salt. And here I've got, sea salt. And then this is called Himalayan salt. And you can see it's got a little bit different color than the salt there. Good old salt. Sodium chloride. All through history, it's been very, very important. If we don't have salt, we'll die, actually. The animal trails, they started to go to salt licks, where they would then have paths to the salt licks. From that, then later grew what? Roads. And from those roads, then villages, and from villages, then cities. Marco Polo and his expedition was, part of it was for the salt mining that you would say there. Okay. In Roman and Greek times, they paid the soldiers with salt. An ounce of salt was as good as an ounce of gold back those days. In fact, the word salary comes from the base word of salt. And if the soldier wasn't doing what he was supposed to be doing, then his pay was docked. And because he wasn't worth his salt. Leonardo da Vinci, when he painted the Last Supper, he shows Judas, and when Judas is leaning over, he is tipped over the salt. Then we have the bad luck of spilling the salt. And then it carried forward that you would then take the salt and throw a little bit over your left shoulder. That was to blind the devil. Salt was so valuable that it must have been the devil that made you spill it. And the way to blind him from keep doing what he was doing is you throw some salt in his eyes. You know, salt was used in covenant agreements. So if you had, say, two business people and they were going to come into an agreement, they would reach into their salt bag, and I would take out some salt and I would put it in your bag. You would take some salt and you would put it in my bag. If you was going to renege on the agreement, you had to get into the bag and get all of your salt out. So it was almost impossible to break the covenant agreement there. Sometimes in wedding ceremonies you've seen, I know I have, of where they take two candles and they'll bring them together, and that's called the unity candle. Well, salt can also be used in their ceremonies, where then the bride and groom will each have their own salt, and they will then combine the salt together, and they are to use that salt in their cooking. And then when it needs to be refilled, they'll do it again in remembrance of their vows. Well, folks, what does the Bible say about salt? Let's go to the Sermon on the Mount, and let's look particularly at Matthew 5:13. Ye are the salt of the earth, but if the salt has lost his savor, wherewith shall it be salted? It is henceforth good for nothing, but to be cast out and to be trodden under foot of men. So it's calling you and me the salt of the earth. And we saw how valuable maybe salt is itself, okay? But it says if the salt has lost its savor, then how is it going to get it back? If that be the case, it's not good for anything. You could throw it on the paths and it would kill the weeds. Well, it's again breaking down some of those words there. Savor, okay? In Jesus' time, salt had a certain element that was kind of unique to it. It was magnesium. And they would take the salt and they would make blocks out of the salt, folks. And then you know what? That salt became a catalyst. They would put it in the kilns, and then the fire would get so much hotter because of the magnesium. But if they left the blocks out and let it just sit there and everything, it would lose its savor. It would lose the magnesium. And it wouldn't be good for anything. In fact, you get a grease fire at home, you put some salt on it to put it out, don't you? Okay? But that salt, as I said, had magnesium in it. And Jesus knew when he was talking to the disciples, he knew of the use of salt there and the salt blocks that would go in the kilns. And so when they would purify metal, make bronze or even gold, they would use them salt blocks to, get that fire a lot much more hotter. It's savor, okay? On the other hand, salt can draw, too. I can remember Grandma putting a saltine cracker in the salt shaker to draw the moisture to the saltine rather than the salt itself, because You go and shake the salt, it would be all compressed together there. Okay? So it was that level of magnesium. And over time, salt would lose its savor. You are the salt of the earth. That is kind of developed into an idiom. Idiom is kind of where you take a phrase of words and they mean something totally different than if you took the words by themselves. It's raining cats and dogs. Well, if you took each word, you think, well, that don't make sense at all. Okay, but it's tell us what? It's raining a lot. Or, hey, get off my back. That's not physically the case at all, but it has some meaning there. Salt of the earth. What do we mean there when Jesus was talking to us that we are salt of the earth there, folks? Let's look at some things here. Salt of the earth, a person or a group that is genuine. They're genuine. They're morally sound. They're unpretentious. They're a very good and worthy person or group. Salt of the earth. You don't hear that phrase much, do you, folks? But when I say it to you, things come to mind. Characteristics do. They embody simplicity and moral integrity. They are salt of the earth. How about some people? A sports level, maybe Coach Wooden. I would say Coach Wooden was salt of the earth. Mother Teresa, salt of the earth. Some would say today maybe Dr. Fauci, salt of the earth. It also said that of a group. Folks, I'm thinking of a group, one of our premier carriers, salt of the earth. This would be OneAmerica. You know, they're a mutual insurance company. The opposite of that would be called a stock insurance company. You know, the owners of a mutual insurance company are the policy holders themselves. They don't have to look over their shoulder and see if some other company, even from another country, is going to buy them. The policy holders own the insurance company. And a lot of officers and employees, they have that covenant relationship with the owners. The owners are who? The policy holders. Being that salt of the earth, folks, for years they've been taking on a life event that we're all confronted with. My mother-in-law right now, Laverne, she has a benign tumor on her kidney. It's pressing against her sciatic nerve, causing her a lot of pain. She's 91 years old, folks. It could be that the life event of long-term care is going to come to confront that side of the family. It's something we're all going to be facing. And yet, OneAmerica State Life has taken this on, that they can provide that needed salt, be that salt of the earth that's needed to take care of that life event. By working with your internal wholesaler and motivating your clients to explore that life event that I just mentioned of long-term care, you can be assured that those policyholders, those owners of OneAmerica, are going to get peace of mind. They're going to get control care. They're going to be able to maintain their independence. And you're going to see a video a little bit later where that is very, very important, maintaining that independence. They're going to show protection for the families. They're going to show how to preserve assets. And yes, even leave a legacy. Peace of mind. They're going to have security that they can't outlive. You know, they can have coverage that goes a lifetime, folks. A lifetime. And you think about it. You can probably think of someone, I know I can, think of more than one, where their long-term care event is more than the average 2, 3, 4 years that you hear out there. It's long-term care, folks. Long-term care, folks. They're going to have choices for life. Either single protection or maybe joint protection would be better there. Okay? They're going to have different funding options, even using qualified money to help with this life event. And who do I ask? Your internal wholesaler is there, folks, to help you with those particular options, answers to their questions. They're going to have support for life. They've been in this a long time, folks. They know how to give that concierge service at all different steps. Support for life, which then brings stability for life. That peace of mind, which again is very, very important. Salt of the earth, One America, indeed. And that's why they're part of our portfolio. Well, how about those recommendations? And I said that the theme and the words today was salt of the earth. Song by Mr. Piano Man himself, Billy Joel. The name of the song is called Honesty. Honesty. And I like this phrase here. Honesty is ever hardly heard. How about a poem? The poem is called Trust. And the author is Jake Gassett. Jake Gassett. That is Gassiot. And the book, book, Mr. Salt of the Earth himself. One of my mentors. I had the privilege to see him personally a couple of times. And, of course, reading his books and now videos and that. And that's Born to Win by Zig Ziglar. Born to Win, Zig Ziglar. Just Google that. Say Born to Win, Zig Ziglar. There'll be a 5-minute little YouTube. Make you go get the book. Get the book, folks. Get the book. That leads us to the movie. Well, again, I said maybe you could think of some particular people that maybe would be called salt of the earth. I think this movie was made for one of those people. The movie is entitled A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood. A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood. And, of course, it's a true story on Mr. Rogers. Mr. Rogers. And Tom Hanks. Mr. Forrest Gump himself plays Mr. Rogers. And he does an excellent, excellent job. But I would highly recommend that. You want to see Salt of the Earth. A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood. Mr. Rogers would be the movie to see there. And the video I'm bringing to you is from what? One America State Life. And kind of to go with that would be this power phrase. And the power phrase comes from an experienced person in our industry, the late Mr. Ben Feldman. Doing something costs something. Doing nothing costs something. And quite often, doing nothing costs more than something. I don't need it today. Well, doing that action that you just said is going to cost you. And sometimes that's going to be a lot more than doing something. That's a little simple little phrase, but Ben knew how to use it. Our video comes to us, again, as I said, from One America. And Dennis is kind of, I guess, wearing both hats. He is an owner of One America. He is also an employee of One America. And he gives a beautiful story of life events that he was part of, him and his father, and how really even the timing of those life events can be that fast. The experience that his dad gained from those two life events and happening just that fast. And from that experience, then his dad, was going to make sure that going forward, his family was not going to have to go through that, and that everyone was going to have that peace of mind. Salt of the earth. I think you enjoy it.
In 1995, I was a young actuary working in Winnipeg in group insurance, and unfortunately my mom passed away suddenly from a stroke, literally overnight, very unexpected. And in a very short time, I went from a young actuary with a great job and a paycheck and no worries in life, thinking I had the world by the tail, to my dad asking me to say, hey, do you know how to fill out this claim form for this group insurance policy for your mom? And suddenly, what I was doing was no longer just a job. It was actually something I could see the power of, that we were delivering to the marketplace in those moments of need. Around that same time, my grandma was sort of at the beginning of a long-term care event that lasted well into 2005, 2006, so almost 10 years. And so in a very short time, my dad went from losing his wife to also having to navigate a long-term care event for my grandma. My dad was the oldest son, and so also took a lot of responsibility for that family. And as hard as that was, what I watched my dad do through all that time was to plan ahead to make sure that the burdens that he had to bear were not going to be passed on to the next generation. And so watching those things and experiencing them personally and seeing the impact it had on my dad and his planning that he put in place allowed him to live his best life because he had the peace of mind and financial security to know that he was not going to become a burden on his children, and to put the things in place to make sure that wasn't going to happen. And so for me, I come to work every day now knowing that we deliver insurance solutions to people so we can be there when they need us most. I truly believe that what we do puts products and solutions into your hands to give your clients financial security and peace of mind that they need to truly live their best life. OneAmerica is fully committed to the long-term care marketplace and remains committed to our distribution partners who help American families every day. And when we talk about long-term care, we mean it. And that's why we believe and are committed to offering a lifetime benefit option to the marketplace. It's the only way to ensure policyholders can truly transfer the catastrophic care risk and get the care they need as long as they need it. We also know it's important to offer flexible options to the market, including joint coverage for spouses and flexible funding options, including the opportunity to use qualified funds for long-term care solutions. And we support policyholders and their families with our claims concierge service.
Wasn't that powerful? I think it was very much. And one phrase that he used, in fact, I think there was even a slide on it. To Dennis, this was not just a job. He wanted to do something and be that salt of the earth. And he's doing that, folks, representing OneAmerica. Remember this, folks, what? GP for you. G. GP for you, G. And blessed are those who ease the pain of misfortune, and whatever timing it may be, for they shall be called insurance agents. Have a good week.